If we are measuring success exclusively based on external factors, it's never going to be enough to validate how well you're doing or how secure you are in business. And so often in business, we think we don't have room for emotions. Keep your personal life personal. Keep your professional life professional. And don't have any emotions as a human being. But what I know and what I've seen is my clients double, triple, quadruple, 10x sometimes their business because they've learned the art of mastering and resting in their emotions, and it makes them so much more money.
Welcome to Strategic Edge, our subtitle, Applying Transformative Leadership. We are glad you could join us today. We are a podcast for leaders and by leaders. We're going to interview the best and the brightest of leaders to be able to provide you information. We're here to inform, to instruct, and to inspire you on your leadership journey. My name is Ted Davis. My company is Grace Strategic Services, Inc. We're proud to be the sponsor of this podcast. And we encourage you to take the information that we're going to share, make it your own, absorb it, then reflect on it. What does it mean to you? And finally commit to an action plan. So with that, let's get started with today's episode. Well, welcome. I am excited today to welcome as my guest, Rebecca Silence. Rebecca is a emotional success coach. As a matter of fact, what was it? Reddit and Business Insider both cited her as emotional coach of the year back in 2022. Rebecca's had a long career. She, unfortunately, her background, as in many cases, people have success in this field. She came from a family that had alcohol and abusive problems. Adverse childhood experiences do have a lasting effect, and in her, she later in life developed anorexia and abused alcohol herself. As part of her healing attempt, I love this, you turned to music therapy. I thought that was cool. And as well, you're doing your intern, then you started looking at, you realized that people lacked coping skills. They could have all the desire they wanted, but if you didn't have the coping skills, they weren't going to make progress. And so you set about to study human behavior. Have I captured it correctly?
This is all very accurate, and particularly what I'm talking about with the lack of coping skills is around emotional regulation and knowing how to handle emotions and emotional trauma. But yes, you have it right, and I'm so glad to be here.
Excellent. And then you had a first marriage fail. You're in your second marriage, doing very well. Now in a successful career, and just when you would think, wow, we've made it, we've gotten all these milestones, then you're struck by cancer. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. And you know what I'll say is I am the space where all healing is possible. And what I mean by that is healing to me is freedom. And when we are emotionally sound and healed, we're free. So my work is about emotional healing, but more than that, it's about learning how to get beyond our past so we can create whatever future we desire. So my number one testimony that healing is possible is the life I have now. And before cancer, I was real achievement focused, real results focused. And then cancer allowed me to realize, wait a minute, I'm never going to outsmart my past or beat my past in a way where old triggers never come up again. But what I can do is learn how to have a new experience, regardless of what's going on. And I can learn the art of being so emotionally clear that I'm in alignment with my own spirit, letting my spirit guide me one step at a time. So cancer was wild because, yeah, I had beat my past in so many ways. I had the life I had always dreamed up for myself and was pinching myself day in and day out, a thriving business and a radio show and a great second marriage. And then I got pregnant with my second baby and got diagnosed with cancer while I was 7 months pregnant. And after the baby was 3 weeks old, I got staged and I was given a 5% chance to live at 34 years old and no family history of cancer, no symptoms. I mean, I obviously am a pretty white girl. I don't tan. It was bizarre. And the seminar of my life to really recognize it is so easy as a leader and as a woman and as a human to be our best when things are going our way. But I just remember thinking, okay, Rebecca, well, who are you going to be now? Are you going to step into being the best of yourself, especially now, so that this circumstance doesn't get to win?
Good.
And I'm here.
That's awesome. Incredible story. Now, my focus here on the strategic edge is business leaders,
Yeah.
what they need to do, how they grow, and so forth. So, when you're working with business leaders, what is it you're encouraging them to do? How do you help them?
Yeah. Well, my VIP private practice clients are typically entrepreneurs or in the C suite of whatever organization they're in, or they're in upper management. And so I'm really working with the people that care about service to humanity. And I think the number one thing I want business leaders to know is we're never going to really be able to measure our impact. What we can measure is how well did we show up, and were we in what I describe empowered leadership, where we are sourcing from our own personal power, speaking to the greatness of our team members, speaking to the greatness of our clients, empowering in our leadership, not just the best in people, but their ability to ripple out in a way that's immeasurable as well. And I think our success metrics are pretty wonky a lot of the time, right? Because if we don't have that external validation, the right amount of sales, the right amount of reviews, the right amount of contracts closed, we can question ourselves so fast. And I see it so often for business leaders, whether we're entrepreneurs or not, where we can be flying high and then out of nowhere in a second, it's like the bottom got pulled out from under us. So I also teach a lot of what I call self validation, and knowing your best is enough and you made your best of the situation and letting that be enough. It's an art, it's a skill, and it is so important, right? And then the third thing I'll say is I think, especially as business leaders, people are looking up to us and people are following us. And the more emotionally clear we are, the more we can handle the emotions of people around us so that we can be that solid, steady, powerful, empowered force of good, for the greater good of all.
So it sounds like you are helping business leaders to be emotionally intelligent or emotionally healthy so that they can empower other
Mhm.
people to be the best that they can, and obviously it means that they can achieve. Um, so do you discourage or using metrics like revenue, profitability, sales closures?
No, I think these metrics are important when it comes to really looking at business, right? Obviously, in business, we need to look at revenue, we need to look at data, we need to look at bottom line. But what I'm saying is, we don't factor in how clear are you emotionally? How much can you say when you go to bed at night, you did your best today? And let that be enough and not feel the stress and the pressure of not enoughness if the numbers aren't where you need them to be. If we are measuring success exclusively based on external factors, it's never going to be enough to validate, how well you're doing or how secure you are in business. But when you're emotionally sound, and I only teach 5 emotions. When we talk about emotional intelligence, I make it really simple. And there's nobody out there that isn't a leader. But the audience here is so precious to me because you identify as a leader, or you wouldn't be listening to this show, right? So we all have an impact and a ripple. Not very many people identify as a leader, especially not in business. So you're here, you already get that about yourself. And the 5 emotions I teach are anger, fear, grief, joy, excitement. And so often in business, we think we don't have room for emotions. Keep your personal life personal.
Right.
Keep your professional life professional. and don't have any emotions as a human being. But what I know and what I've seen is my clients double, triple, quadruple, 10x sometimes their business because they've learned the art of mastering and resting in their emotions, and it makes them so much more magnetic.
So is there a model, a scale, or what do you give them, equip people with, particularly leaders, that they can then, I mean, that sounds like a very reflective thing, self-reflection, so that they can look at it and say, yes, I have met a standard, I have conformed with a model, whatever it is.
Yeah,
So it's not just simply, I'm going to choose to feel good because I just want to feel good. But no, there's a health, there's a level of healthiness there, mental health. So is
yeah.
there something a little bit more objective and less subjective that you teach them to get?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So, the first piece, I've created what I call the practice of emotional healing. So, that's the method, that's the model, right? The practice of emotional healing. So, it starts with being very, very deliberate and intentional and committed to something, right? Because if in business and in leadership, we're just trying to be reactive and make sure everybody else's needs are met without having that clear intention of what we're doing with the business. This is where the revenue conversation is great, right? Like let's start with an intention. We're going to do this much revenue, right? So we start with an intention and then we go into, well, how do I feel? And people in business so often don't want to pay attention to how they feel. And what I'm saying is, are you clear emotionally? This isn't some ethereal question. It's literal. Like, are you feeling any grief? Are you feeling any fear? Are you feeling any anger? Are you resting in joy and excitement? I want joyful, excited leaders. And my work isn't about positivity. I hate positivity. I'm not a positivity coach, but I'm saying it is possible for you to not be threatened by your emotions. And from there, you're not going to be threatened by your clients' emotions, your team's emotions. And the more emotionally open you are and clear you are, the more attractive you become in business. I promise you. When people are guarded, protecting their hearts, shut down emotionally, or they have a short fuse emotionally, they're not as good or as attractive in business. So there's a difference between the feelings you have about what's going on around you and the emotions you need to feel. So being intentional and just paying attention to where am I at emotionally? Is there anything I need to clear? Just those first two steps of the practice of emotional healing are game changing alone.
Good. So why is it you don't like positivity?
Because I don't think it helps at all. I don't think anything happens to us or for us. Cancer didn't happen to me or for me. It happened. And I don't want to be like, oh, let's find the gift in it. There's no gift in it. But I get to access the possibility of being my best in spite of, and being my best in a way where I use the circumstance to my advantage versus I'm at the effect of it or a victim to it. So I don't think anything happens to us or for us. I think life just happens and then we get to decide who we're going to be. And the two
So,
biggest steps to who are you going to be is what's your intention? Who do you want to be? And how do you want to feel? And we have the ability to actually control more than we think who we want to be and how we want to feel.
uh, uh, doesn't seem to differ from what I've studied about positivity. Did you ever read Barbara Fredrickson's book Positivity and her
No,
first
no.
slate of seven emotions?
Okay.
Yeah, I remember. Well, positivity as a subset of Seligman's uh, positive psychology, I think is phenomenal, and I think it would line up a lot with what you have to say. So, in helping people understand, do you ever look inside what is the composition of emotion and kind of helping people understand? Here's what an emotion is, so you kind of do a better job of being
Yeah.
emotionally aware. I mean, what I encourage people to do is, three things you got to do at the personal level is being self-aware, self-regulating, self-motivating. And to do that, I think when you get inside, what is emotion? So
Yeah.
your comments and thoughts on that.
So there's a huge distinction, and I differentiate between our feelings about what's going on, which is how we learn to cope, and the emotions we need to feel. So there's a difference between our feelings and the emotions we need to feel. And a baby is born with these naturally occurring emotions
Absolutely.
of grief, fear, anger, joy, excitement. That's it. We're not born knowing we can be betrayed or rejected or abandoned or jealous or guilty or shameful. I could go on and on and on. We learn anxiety. That's how we cope because it's more comfortable than dealing with the emotion underneath it, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a difference between how we are feeling about what's going on around us and the emotion inside of us that we need to feel. And the misconception of all misconceptions for business leaders in particular is that there's no room for emotions in business. And if we don't deal with our feelings so we can get to the emotion, so we can do our job, I say it all the time, the world needs you healed so you can make your difference.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I emphasize when I coach people on the topic is, which I think is important, is part of being self-aware is realizing that there's a criteria. We each have our own criteria for what makes us happy, angry, and so forth. So the example I would use is the last Super Bowl. You had fans from San Francisco, fans from Kansas City watching exactly the same game, but at the end of it, you had polar opposite emotions. We from Kansas City, or I live north of Kansas City. We were thrilled, absolutely, because our criteria to be happy at the end of this game, our criteria is our Chiefs win. Their criteria was the 49ers win. So I just use that as a analogy for
Yeah.
people to understand your criteria for feeling happy about something or feeling sad or whatever. Your criteria is different from mine. And if I really want to come to grips with how do I feel about something, one of the things I have to do is examine, oh, okay, what's my criteria for feeling that way? And is it a criteria that's lasting from when I was a kid? But now I'm an adult. Now I can reflect. Now I
Yeah.
can choose. Am I going to use the same thing? Your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you. And then I would say, let's mature even beyond being so self aware that we understand our criteria for how we want to feel gets generated, right? Because again, it is a trap to need everything around you just right so you can feel how you want to feel.
Absolutely.
Human beings are fickle, circumstances suck sometimes, and things go our way sometimes, and things don't go our way sometimes. So if I can't feel how I want to feel until and unless everything I need is how I need it to be, and everyone is how I need them to be, this is a mess. So, what I'm saying is, you can feel how you want to feel and be deliberate about it and intentional. And again, I'm saying joy and excitement can be the rule you live by. And let me just give you my definition of happiness here. My definition of happiness is I have a healthy relationship with zero resistance to my naturally born human emotions of anger, fear, grief, joy, and excitement. I am willing to be with the emotions, and I know nothing externally is causing the emotion, and the emotion is never a problem. And when I get distracted with not wanting to deal with an emotion, now I'm actually not an empowered leader anymore. I'm
Mhm.
powerless to circumstance and not nearly as effective. So it's just a lie that anything going on around you is actually causing how you feel. Things around you are helping you see how you feel. And then you get to decide, wait a minute, do I want to camp out here or do I want to elevate? And when you notice your feelings about what's going on, just ask yourself, what's the emotion I need to feel underneath this?
I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I think being self-aware, well, how am I feeling? How am I reacting?
Oh my gosh,
But then,
yes. And
then
so
self,
many are asleep.
absolutely. But then to self-regulate is to be able to say, okay, emotion, the frustration I was feeling, that was there to inform me. Now that I know what the message is, that may not be the resourceful emotion I need going forward. I've got to say goodbye to the first emotion that alerted me and that informed me.
Yeah.
And then I pick what's the resourceful emotion to move me forward. And then so I go from being self-aware, self-regulating. I don't let the emotion get so strong that it gets me out of control. So I choose the resourceful, and then I self-motivate, and I magnify that emotion and move myself in the right direction. That's
Mhm. And I'm not putting my life or leadership on hold
yeah.
until other people give me the permission to feel how I want to feel or to be who I want to be. And in business, we're talking a lot about emotional regulation, but let's talk about relationship regulation too. Because, you know, in relationships, people trigger us. And if we think their behavior is causing our upset and we just keep replacing team members or firing clients, and we didn't deal with getting to the place where we're somebody we're proud of in the relationship, the patterns continue. So in relationship, it's never the other person that's the problem, just like the emotion is never the problem. It is here to give you information and to guide you, right? The relationship, if you aren't happy in a relationship, here's what I know for sure. You don't like you in the relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
And so let's get you being somebody who feels how you want to feel and who likes you so that you know you did that work. And now, whatever's going on with the other person, you don't have to own it. You don't have to take responsibility for it. And you don't have to give them all this power to make or break you and how you feel. So take on emotional regulation and awareness, like we're talking about, but also take on in your relationships and business and beyond. Do I like me, or am I waiting for this person to make me feel safe enough to be the person I really am?
Excellent. That is marvelous. We're getting short on time. So two things I like to do. Number one is there a story? Is there a story you like to share that illustrates how you became the guide, the coach, somebody who was having a problem? You helped them, and then they were their own hero. They solved their way out of it because of what you were able to do. What's your favorite story about that?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can pick a favorite, but I'll tell you the first that comes to mind. I have thousands of success stories in my private practice, and there truly is not one case I haven't cracked in 16 and a half years. So I had a woman that came to me, and she was on the leadership team in a financial advising firm and very successful, very, very unhappy. And she wasn't happy in the marriage. She had 3 kids, was bored out of her mind at work. And in a year, we connected her beyond her mind to her emotions and to her spirit and got really honest. And she thought she would have to get divorced and leave the job to get happy. And I said, before we light a match and blow up your whole life, let's get you to the place where you're someone you like and your life is on your terms and you're proud of who you're being. And then once we're there, we can see about changing up the job and the marriage. Long story short, we enrolled her company to give her permission to go to Spain for a month and work remotely. And she basically took herself on a spiritual sabbatical. She got the team on board at work, her clients on board, her husband, the kids, had a month in Spain, came back. Her whole life is set up on her terms now. And she's actually going to create her own company, but nothing had to get blown up. And we didn't, change the scenery externally in the hopes that she would finally feel differently. Marriage is better than ever. Kids are thriving. Her life is hers. She's pursuing creating the business she's always imagined she could have. And her going to Spain proved to her there's nothing she can't create and she doesn't have to lose anything to take care of and honor herself. And I could go on because there are even more just nuances to her story. But I want people to hear the story and know if we think it has to look a certain way, we're trapping ourselves. And business and leadership doesn't have to be a trap that we're a victim to, or pressure, or stress. We can do it on our own terms. I call myself a lifestyle entrepreneur. And I love that term because I am not in business to be a slave to the business. I'm in business to create the lifestyle I want.
Good.
And it can really be on our terms, and we can really feel how we want to feel, and we can really enjoy the experience of business and beyond when we just let ourselves get honest about what we need, what we want, how we feel.
That's awesome. Great story. Thank you so much for sharing it with you. So the last thing is I always like to have my guests to wrap up the show by recommending 3 practical things that people can do as a result of our conversation today. So, what are 3 things you think people ought to be taking the next steps after
Yeah.
this?
I'm going to keep it simple. This isn't easy, but it's the 3 one-liners I just said. Communicating this to yourself and communicating to others, starting with I need, I want, I feel. Are you aware of what you need? Are you aware of what you want? Are you aware of how you feel? Are you communicating it? You do that with your team. Here's what I need. Here's what I want. Here's how I feel. What do you need? What do you want? How do you feel? Your team members are going to feel so held and seen, and they're going to respect you so much more. Vulnerability in business is your superpower. So if you don't hear anything else out of my mouth today, I need, I want, I feel.
So, getting clarity about what I need and what I want and what
And communicating it.
Okay, communicating.
Help people understand you better. And then care about,
help others do it as well.
yes, and then care about their answers to the same questions. I just celebrated my 12-year wedding anniversary last night, and my husband said his favorite thing about being married to me is I meet him where he is, and I'm constantly caring enough to ask these questions so we can reinvent anytime we need, as much as we need, and there's no threat. And we can do this in business too.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing these words of encouragement and enlightenment. I encourage folks to get in touch with you. We will make your contact available. So,
Beautiful.
thank you for being with us today, Rebecca. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. Check me out at RebeccaSilence.com.
Now we've got 3 ideas of what to share from today's podcast. So again, what I'd like for you to be able to do is take those ideas, make them your own, reflect on them. What do they mean to you? And then thirdly, commit to an action plan. Commit to actions that you can take to apply what we've talked about today. If you want help, if you want some ideas, if you want some accountability, please contact me. Contact me by sending me a text, 913-306-1499. Put podcast follow-up in the text message, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you on our next broadcast.